For Global Book Network, I'm Zach Feldman. Thanks so much for tuning in here on globalbooknetwork.tv and on our YouTube channel at Global Book Network. Joining us over the phone is an author. She has a new book out called Reflections of the Soul, a God-breathed intimacy of a new life. It is KarinMNeal. Karin, thanks so much for joining me here on Global Book Network. How's everything going?
Wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So tell me all about this book. I know it's very cultured, but what's it all about?
Well, it was definitely God breathed. It's I had so many other things to write about and I when I called the people for ghostwriting they asked me about my life and this is what spilled out of it. I'd never had this book pre-written or anything. I wrote this for this since last September. And it's about my life and what God has done in my life and in different phases, from my addictions to now finding the Lord in my life and living a life of happy, joyous, and free.
So you wrote this book though, right?
I did.
Yeah,
Yes.
awesome. How long did it take you to kind of write this?
Well, I started probably last September and finished it in time to get it published by June 25th. So,
Nice. Well, hell yeah.
uh,
And
it,
now here in 2026, I mean, it's blowing off of the shelves now.
it,
Your story is pretty inspiring too. You dealt with alcoholism. You were dealing with being homeless as well. I mean, tell me about kind of the struggles you went through.
Well, the addictions were, alcohol mainly, and those were a big struggle. And then finding AA was a blessing, I never believed it as I was in and out of the program for years, collecting all those little chips all the time. And then finally, God said, I think you've been there long enough to know what's going on. And sorry. And so I started to listen, and God allowed me to hear, his offering to, hear other people's stories so that I was able to identify with what they had to say. And I was hearing my story more and more and realizing that I needed to make a change in my life. And my children were in and out of the house. They moved out because my life was so bad, with the
Mhm.
alcohol and the abuse that I was going through and everything. And so AA was, a place to find refuge, really. And until I found the Lord. And when I moved out of my home that I was having such a problem up in Maine, I moved back to my parents' house and my mom went to the meetings with me. She stayed out in the car, but she was there every night waiting for me to finish my program and stuff, and they saw a significant change in me as well. So my mom was my rock, and she was
Yeah.
there for me all the time, and it was just an amazing trip. And it was hard to have to relive my whole life all over again, but it was a blessing because it brought our families closer together. My children had started coming back, and I was really blessed, and I found my husband in the program, and it was just, definitely a God breathed satisfaction from
Yeah.
undersea. He loved me enough to save my life for this purpose, so I can help others, which I had wrote a lot about in my previous book on the power of love and what God has done. And I always wanted to share my story with other people because today so many people are falling into the same traps that we did. And the alcohol,
Yeah.
is not a great place to go, and your children are suffering for it too. And being battered, is not pleasant. And I know that there's so many women out there that could utilize that, and there's men as
Mhm.
well go through the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you are a success story from what AA is really supposed to be all about, and it's incredible that you're here today, you're thriving, and you're doing so great in the world now. After getting treatment and getting help, when did you realize you needed help?
It was well, I started way back, I think very let me see, probably about 2000. I think it was 2000, and then I was losing my way, still struggling with a lot of things. But 2003, I um I I finally God said it's time to get out of the situation you're in. And I had to leave my house at 11:30 at night. and it was in Maine, and it was very dark, and, and I've usually didn't never like to be out in the dark, and God just gave me that peace to be able
Yeah.
to walk a quarter of a mile to my girlfriend's house, and from that point there, that's, when I made the decision, I need to definitely, move away from this situation. I got to my parents and I started going to AA meetings, and I really dug my feet into that, and really was able to listen to what other people had to say. So they really helped me along my way. And, I was told that, even though I left everything behind, I actually left with my dignity and my respect. And that really struck me to the core to let me know that, it wasn't about what I had, it was what I was doing in my, for my life and for my children's lives.
And it
So
wasn't
that's where
easy,
that
obviously.
began.
You had downfalls. You had moments where you were struggling to go back into that life, but not going back in that life too. And it was a hardship for you too. And it's so great you were able to capture all this in this book too, because I think it's really going to help a lot of people who are dealing with the same struggles today, to try to
Yes.
find some help and to try to find some courage to get that help. But really, it stems from the person itself, trying to get that help in the first place. So for you, I mean, when you finally, hit rock bottom, what did you tell yourself that kind of convinced yourself to go through with it?
I well, I was tired of being beaten all the time down in my life, and I was tired of, struggling, and I kept asking God to help me, and, not realizing that He answered back and said, "This is how you're gonna do it," not realizing that I would have to physically get up and get out of my house and walk, a quarter of a mile, but, and it was when it wasn't pitch dark, it was light enough that I could see where I was going and stuff, and I didn't have any fear, and I knew that's when I knew it was okay. It was okay that God was there with me. I didn't really have a relationship with him at that point, but I knew that he had to been there, and he shone that light for me to be able to make it there
Yeah,
and compose myself at that point, and I was able to get to my friend's house, and I slept really well, and that's when I made my decision that I had to leave the state of Maine just to get a new life started, and my parents welcomed me back into the home like, the prodigal son. I was a prodigal daughter, and they
yeah,
welcomed me back in with all the struggles that I had gone through, and they, and my mom was with me the whole time, and my dad, they put my name on their car so that I could insurance so that I could drive with, and that. So
wow,
I felt my life was finally I could leave the past behind and move
yeah.
forward. And I
And
was
and
grateful for
obviously
that.
you were talking about that too a little bit. You do help other people out there nowadays who are struggling with the same situations you went through too. Tell a little bit, for those who don't know, what you're doing.
Well, I was helping out with at a church we fed the local people at the shelter, the Noah shelter at the time, and I was able to share my story with many people there, and so we fed the homeless people and we did all kinds of things with them, and I was able to give back and let them know that there is hope out there. That there is, no matter where you are, you don't have to be defined by what your past was, and that you could move forward and be able to help other people. And it really inspired several people. And I used to hand out my first book to a lot of people too, to help them out. And also for a teen challenge that we have here, which is in Brockton, Mass. And they used to come on once a year and stuff and be able to share stories with them as well, which is a Christian based program for people that are lost through that addictions as well.
Yeah.
So, that's how I was giving back. And I in my book, there's a little bit of everything. We were homeless with seven of us all together, and to be able to rise above that and let people know that we can get out of those situations. We have to be able to accept the help that people have for us and know that there are people that care.
Yeah,
That's what's
100%.
good about these
And
programs.
that's what's also such a blessing about you too, the fact that you were able to go out there too and help people. And then not only do that, but now you've released this book that kind of goes into a lot more detail about, your struggles and what you kind of faced, it's including the homelessness part of it too. You talk about,
Yes.
living out of garbage bags. Tell me about, that living situation and what you were forced to be part of. Well, what you were, what you were faced with, I should say.
Well, we were faced with a small motel room with, just two rooms and people have double bed sized beds, and we just crammed everybody in there. We had a small microwave, and the only other there's microwaves. The food is gross, so we cooked on the grill outside.
Yeah.
They had a swimming pool out front and stuff, but there was other families in there at the time. This is on Cape Cod with the hotels. Everybody was letting the homeless people stay there until we could find shelters elsewhere. And it was difficult, but I tried to make it as, homey as we could possibly do it. We spent the holidays, and we started almost spent the holidays in the shelter, except we got an apartment that they built above the hotel that we were staying at. And, they wanted to give us, a free turkey dinner. And I said, but I already have a kitchen. I don't want to be taking food away from somebody else. Just give it to somebody else. And they said, everybody is all set and this is for you. And it was a cooked meal and,
Mm,
gifts for the kids. And it
mhm.
was made it so homey for all of us. And they did that at Christmas time as well. And we accepted all of that graciousness. The kids had
Yeah.
gifts that their eyes couldn't even imagine. It was just amazing.
It's incredible.
And it is, and we didn't have a vehicles at the time and stuff. But my family used to come and visit and stuff while we were at the shelters. And we did find a home at one point and had to move out of it because it was really a disaster. It was leaking and
Mm,
there was a lot of bad things happening there. So we did get another house moved to Falmouth, Mass. And that house was very nice. The people were great there. But then I got into another relationship and moved our whole family to Maine, and that's where all that trouble began. So, um, the, but but living in that was an eye opener. There was a lot of families, and I realized how many families are out there today still, and there's so less housing to put people in.
yeah.
And if there was just a way to get people to realize that, there is help out there regardless, and you have to wait, and there is waiting periods. We all had to wait and it was hard, but we make the best out of it by, just letting the kids know that everything's going to be okay, so that they could trust that was going to be okay for us.
Yeah.
And it was. And I've got children now that are sought the Lord and they've become Christians. And we have another child, a youngest son that he's in seminary right now and learning to be a pastor. So,
That's awesome.
yeah. So in all of these struggles that we had, it's a miracle to see, and our grandchildren are growing up, too, with the, church, and it's just beautiful,
That is
and
beautiful.
yeah,
It's
so we're
incredible,
very
and
blessed.
it really is an awesome story, and it's really one that definitely readers are gonna cherish. And especially because it's a short read, but it's such an impactful short read too. I want to ask you, did you ever think that like this would ever become a book? Did you ever want to be a writer? Like when did this goal become a reality for you?
Well, we became Christians in 2006, my husband and I, and it was probably after that God was waking me up in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock in the morning, and he's telling me to write things, and sitting there with looking at my walking out in the living room, turn the lights on, and sitting there, go, okay, God, what am I supposed to write? And my husband comes out of the bedroom and he goes, what are you doing up here this early? And he's like, and I was like, God asked me to write. And he's like, what? And I said, I have no idea. I said, this is what I'm sitting here for. So he says, let me know how that works out in the morning. So I had no inkling. I was horrible at spelling, horrible at doing anything. I hated schoolwork.
Mhm.
And in my book tells you I skipped school. I did everything to stay away from it. and but the things that God was giving me to write was incredible. Absolutely, the words that were flowing onto the paper was amazing. And my husband would look at this stuff and all these things, and he would read everything that I wrote. And sometimes I would cross stuff out. And he'd say, "What are you crossing that out?" I said, "Well, I thought maybe you could add some extra things in there to make it sound better." He says, "Reread it again, what God gave you." And I started to cry. And he goes, "Oh, And I was like, yeah, it sounded much better what he wanted me to write. So the Lord and I had a good relationship with that. And the Holy Spirit, I said, this guy is going to be really amazing because I couldn't spell a thing. and he was giving me these words, so I had to look them up because my husband always says, "Always use a dictionary," so which I never did. And I started looking at the words, and I was yeah, and I was amazed at the words that I was writing on there, and they would just come into my head. So all of these things that I wrote was truly all God breathed. It wasn't anything that I said, "I think I'll be an author," or, or any of that. And it still sounds bizarre to me that I've now authored 2 books. My husband says, "Have you met my wife, the author?" And I'm like, I was like, "It just sounds so unbelievable," you know? I love it though.
I mean,
It's
listen,
kinda cool.
listen. If my wife could tell me to use a dictionary, that'd be fantastic. I mean, listen, the amount of spelling mistakes that I make through text messages is uncanny. Okay, but
It truly is.
I guess that's great advice.
It is
Obviously,
good
yeah,
advice.
like you've published 2 books out here now. This is obviously your second book too. Is there is there more books coming in the future?
Well, actually, I have one in the that I have already pre-written. It's something I had put together, and it's what did I say? It was the depth of God's love. I think that's what it was.
Nice.
And that one I'm working on now, and it's just something they asked me about, and I said, well, it was something I had, that God had given me the name for the book. And, I was like, "Wow, this is really amazing." I can't believe I'm even actually doing that too. And everything that I read that I have written, I wrote those back in 2016. So I'm looking
Yeah.
at it now and just looking at how God has orchestrated the first book. And then for the second book is all about everything that I've done since the 2014 that I, never really looked at and stuff. And now he wants me to do the stuff that I had already pre-written, which is like 3 other notebooks I gotta put together, and it all falls into place. And I was like, "There's nobody but God that could do that," because it was not anything on my thought scale at all. So
Yeah.
he's incredible.
Incredible. I mean, it really is, and it's amazing that you're here today and you're thriving with this with this book and with life too. How has your husband been supporting you through this journey?
Amazing. He's 100% supportive all the time. He's sitting in the corner with me. Yeah, he's always with me with everything we do with the books and stuff, and he's read everything, and he proofreads, and
Mhm.
and he's just amazing. I just love him.
That's incredible. Well, I'm happy you
Yeah.
guys are happy, and I'm happy, that
Yes.
that things are going well, and that people can get better, through your experience too, through this book, Reflections
Yes.
of the Soul. It's available on Amazon. It's available everywhere books are sold too. But Karen, for those who want to keep in touch with you, what's the website they can go to?
It's Karin M. Neal, author 9 at .com. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Well, KarinMNeal author.com is where they can go and also check out all of your past work and check out everything that you're up to. Definitely come back when you have your next book. I'd love to talk to you more about that too. But Karen, for now, it was a pleasure talking to you about this book, Reflections of the Soul, and best of luck with it, and best of luck with everything that's going on in your life.
Thank you so much, and it was a pleasure being here. And I sent you an air hug.
Yes, I'll send
Thank
you an air
you.
hug as well.
Thank you.
And good luck with everything. And thanks so
Thank
much for
you.
listening here on Global Book Network, here on globalbooknetwork.tv and on our YouTube channel. Check out all of our past interviews on globalbooknetwork.tv and on the YouTube channel. And we'll see you here next time for another author interview. I'm Zach Feldman, and we'll see you here next time.